Hey guys, and thanks for watching. So this is just going to be a real-time footage of me painting one of these dozens of bumps on this urchin. So this is the final layer, the detail layer. And I always like to start off with the white, the highlight, because generally I'll probably need to put some more white down. So if I do the white first, by the time I finish the rest of the bump, then the white is mostly dry and I can pop some real thick highlights, or thick for me, highlights over the top. So I mix my paints with a medium, and that means that I can get some real natural variance in tone and lots of complexity. But the challenge with that is that it really does, to get the really brights, I really do have to put down a good few layers of white. So I start working that in pretty early in the layers on top of the sort of mid-tone, and build that up, and that really helps to create that real subtle tones in there, but it also helps to lift it so the drawing doesn't look too, is not too much on the dark scale. So I'm not using too fine a brush here for these big bumps. I save the smaller brush for the sort of really linear detail in between these bumps where there's lots of cracks and lines and stuff like that, whereas this is mostly form. So here I'm just taking a tone just down from white. The actual, it probably could be a bit darker, or I need it to be a bit darker, but because this is going to, when it dries, it's going to show the tones underneath, that this tone that looks a bit too bright to start with, to show the form. As with acrylics, obviously, you know, they do darken as they dry anyway, but especially when there's a dark tone underneath. So a lot of what I'm doing when I paint is not just thinking about the tone I need, but thinking about what that tone is going to be once it's dried, and what tone it's sitting on top of. And that can really help you paint some detail too, because if you use too much of a light tone and just paint over it in parts, then when that dries back, you're creating some detail within that shadow. And this is, I just really love painting urchins. They're just so complex, and because the form undulates and is curved, they just capture light in so many different ways, and you know, representing that light at its at a natural way, and in the sense that it feels natural, and that it feels realistic, and while you're creating detail is just a lot of fun. It's a really big challenge. So here I'm just sort of creating a bit of a border. It gives me something to work into when I start doing the surface of the urchin. So although I really am focusing on the bump, I'm just using, while I'm there, I'm just creating a bit of a border around it, so that I've got something else to come into. And obviously here the light is coming from the left hand side, but because this ridge, which is behind the bump, is lifted up, because it's a bit concave as it lifts up, and there's a bit of a ridge there, it's catching that light. The light is coming from sort of top left, so it's coming down, and where you can tell by the cast of the shadow. I really do, with the urchins, the feathers I paint in a different way, but because the urchins have a real scratchy texture, there's nothing smooth about them. Although the tops of the bumps are sometimes, well, they're certainly smoother, but they can sometimes be quite smooth. But as I'm painting, I really do, you can see my hand dance around, and that's not just creating detail and lines, it's really helping to create texture. I don't want any smooth tones, or tones that feel too flat and too smooth. it's got a gritty sandpaper kind of effect to the urchin, and I guess that's the calcium and the way that the urchin is formed. But that's one of the most important things that I want to represent while creating form is the feel of the surface texture. And so this specific bump here, it has this little shadow just at the base here. It's really important to me to create a unique, the unique element of life is really important. I could sort of paint 3 of these bumps at one go, and I could do all the whites, and then I could grab that tone that was nearly white and, you know, overlap it to the edge of the shadow so it creates a nice, well, you can see that where I was talking about where that started to sort of dry now, you can see it's starting to show that tone through, and it's really created this beautiful grade and shows that there's a nice soft shadow coming in. And so I could paint 3 or 4 at a time, and I mean, if you were dry blending, you could go down and do the highlights on all of them in a whole run, and it would be really efficient, and you know, you would move through it pretty quickly, a lot quicker than I do. Just 10 minutes to paint this one bump. But the thing when you paint them individually is you really focus on the individuality. You know, it's nature, so yeah, you might catch the light coming in the right direction each time, but those subtle variances, that odd chip here, or that little crack, that random shadow, or the way that, you know, one is slightly misshapen, and so the bump is, you know, a bit off to the left, or a bit skewed, or bigger than another one. So I really do like to try and be true to that. That's really important for me. I love science, and I love you know, biology and chemistry and geology, especially in my sort of ocean rock works, and painting form as it is really helps describe the process that it's been created with. And if you try and paint multiple parts at the same time, those parts are going to come out a bit generic, or they do when I do it like that, and that takes away the uniqueness of life. You know, this is a repeating patterned form. It has, it's written in its DNA to create a form like this, but because it's life, it always is ever so slightly different, and because it's lived a life, I guess, you know, it's been battered and scratched. And so the top of this round bump here, I just was just struggling to get that to feel like it was a bit to get the right shape on the top before I put this sort of last shadow in here. And you can see I'm very cautious. Well, here I'm softening the shadow. I don't want it to be too contrasted or too intense. But you can see with my highlights, when I stretch my highlights around into the shadow there on the main sort of cone of the form, especially the reason I thought of mentioning it is because of the one right near the highlight that goes around the base of this circle that I'm painting now, the bump at the top. If I painted that too bright, my eye sees it as a highlight. If I painted it too bright, then I put this shadow in that I've just painted, then it would really have a lot of contrast there, and it would draw too much attention and feel unnatural. And because the bump at the top is smoother, it gets a few glistens of shine, which again, obviously, I'm referencing off the image. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them reflect in a different way. I really hope you enjoyed this this video. This is kind of how I spend my days, and it's a real privilege to share it. So thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, or follow my Instagram or social media, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.